Okay, we're back. Alrighty. I'm going to give a little quick report on Giving Day progress. We'll look up at the tote board, and it's now 796 givers. Once again, 900 givers. That's 104 more. We're kind of going at a slow pace right now, but I'm sure it's going to pick up after this Quodlibet. Oh wow, 797. See? It's going up. Maybe I should just break in every time there's a new gift. No, I'm kidding. All right, 900 givers gets us $31,500, and I would sure like to have that personally. So I'm sure that, and I won't be getting it personally. Don't get me wrong; it goes to the college. But anyhow, let me just shut up and read the script here. We have over 350 alumni who give monthly to the Carroll Fund, which supports key areas to help students. These include financial aid, faculty and staff support, career services, athletics, and counseling and spiritual life. When you go to ChristendomGivingDay.com, please consider selecting monthly gift to join over 350 fellow alumni in sustaining students throughout the year. Next up, now we have our Quodlibet with a couple of relatively new professors, but they're really good people from what I know of them. And it's nice to have them here. The thing that's kind of weird about all of this is that I have never been involved with nor been to one of these Quodlibets, and all of a sudden now I'm hosting one. So if I'm doing anything wrong, please somebody just jump in and slap me silly or something. Okay, so this is Dr. Kathleen Sullivan and Dr. Connor Sweeney. Kathleen teaches with English Language and Literature Department, and Connor is Theology Department. Okay, I've already started to tell you something about yourselves, but it's asking me to ask you to tell us something about yourselves. Okay.
Thank you very much. Great. Well, it is very great to be here. And yes, so I'm relatively new, second year in, and I'm from New Hampshire. So there I am from New England. We've got all the cool weather, which is very similar to Virginia weather. So I love it. And I went to my undergrad college at Thomas Aquinas College, got my master's at the University of Dallas, and then my doctorate at Catholic University. So it's also really great being here because, of course, there's so many connections when you just name those colleges. So yeah, it's wonderful to be part of the Christendom community. And I've been teaching the core classes, which are fantastic, to return to Iliad and the Odyssey, which, I had obviously encountered at TAC. So it's just so wonderful to delve back into those great books and in this liberal arts education that we have here. And I just love the community and department. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here and happy to talk about literature, but also theology, maybe philosophy. It's kind of funny when the students ask, they're like, well, you're an English major. I'm like, actually, I wasn't. So it's a liberal arts major, but obviously for the other degrees that, yes, English. So happy to talk about whatever you guys want to ask us.
Beautiful.
I'm a Canadian by birth. You can hold that against me if you wish. Most recently, I lived in Australia, however, for a better part of a decade. And obviously to start at Christendom, I had to fly around the world, and it just happened to be during the midst of a global pandemic. So I won't bore you with the trauma of that event, but let me tell you, it was exceptional. So I did my study, some study in Australia, in Rome, got my doctorate at the JP2 Institute for Marriage and Family in Rome, and then studied, or rather taught, at the JP2 Institute in Melbourne for 6-7 years before coming here to Christendom. Just grateful now to be here. It's good to be back in North America, and yeah, happy just to be here tonight and trying to help the cause.
So you lived in Melbourne then, huh?
Yeah, okay. Melbourne was my hometown for 10 years.
Wow, so, yeah. I'll talk to you later.
No accent,
yeah.
But
yeah. Well,
I could try.
You have a Canadian accent, but that's okay. All righty.
Totally good.
Okay, so to get us started, and this will be educational for me, can somebody explain what a Quodlibet is and why they have become a tradition at Christendom?
We're asking the new people this, Walter.
You're right. Do either of you have any idea the answer of that question?
Isn't it what will be said? Somebody help me out there.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you asked questions having to do with the liberal arts tradition. And even if it is asked in a question in your particular field or discipline, if it is or isn't, hopefully with that understanding of all of the disciplines are interconnected and talk and communicate with each other, like hopefully we would have something to say, even if it isn't specifically directed towards us. But
Beautiful.
yes.
That works for me.
Okay. That's my
And
impression.
and correct me if I'm wrong, studio audience. Did Mike Brown actually start that here? Okay, so Mike Brown actually started that here, and we're gonna hear from him later. And and I think it's been maybe 5-6 years they've been doing it, maybe even a little longer than
Thereabouts,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, there's usually a slightly larger panel.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 professors. I did do one last year in Killian's. And yeah, there was obviously literature, actually, yeah, Trey Stanford, another literature, philosophy, theology.
Okay.
So
okay.
yeah, just kind of across the board, and any question students have.
And now that I'm thinking about it, I just lied earlier. I have actually been to one, and it was over a summer. It was one that had the Christendom Graduate School, and a few other people from the local area came to that. So I do remember it. I actually did enjoy it. Strange as that may seem. Anyways, okay. So I guess we're just going to dive in with these questions that have been prepared here. Okay. And I'm going to try the best I can to sort of mix them up. Okay.
Great.
All righty. Okay. Yeah, how am I going to mix them up? Okay, I'll just ask the first one first. That's a good way to mix them up, right? Okay, would you say that the vision of hell, purgatory, and heaven presented by Dante in the Divine Comedy is compatible with the teachings of the Catholic Church?
Well, why don't we hear a little bit about Dante from the literature specialist, Ms. Kathleen?
Thanks, Connor. Thanks, Dr. Sweeney. No, I love these types of questions. It really is an opening into seeing the world through the various lenses that we do here at Christendom. So asking a theological question based on a work of literature, a poem, but also that work of literature is based in, theological, philosophical truths, human nature truths. And so what we're really asking is something true of human nature. And so how are we as fallen human beings in a fallen world able to understand these eternal, beautiful mysteries of God and of the 4 last things? So I love those types of questions, because some artist has wrestled and worked to try to bring an understanding that we're capable of in an imaginative way, in a terrifying way, in a beautiful way, because it's beautiful poetry. And I wish I knew Italian so I could listen to it, understand it in that musical language. But yeah, so I would say, of course, it's not going to get to the, the maybe catechism type of truth, but it's going to express a truth that we can experience by traveling through the circles and then up through heaven. So in terms of how does it reveal a truth, it is revealing a truth of how we fallen creatures can experience the 4 last things in an imaginative and a rational and emotional way, which will lead us to ask those more particular and precise theological questions that I think theological disciplines and the catechism can more precisely answer. But yeah, he certainly makes us feel in that we are meant, well, he makes us understand that we are meant for more, not just in this world.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, to me, it's about, there's something in narrative, story, literature that communicates fundamental theological principles and ideas in a way that actually does try to capture their living reality. You can look at the principles on a page, you can look at propositions, and that's great as far as it goes, but the reality is those are always embedded in living contexts.
Yeah.
And certainly you see something like Dante here, he's combining theology, he's combining philosophy, he's combining narrative into an account. And you might say, obviously, there's going to be artistic expression, and maybe there are not aspects of it that would literally be like hell or literally be like heaven or purgatory. But certainly, I mean, he's telling a story and he's fleshing out theological realities. He's showing their existential depth. And certainly for me, anytime theology can, enter into a marriage with storytelling, with literature, with art, you name it, you get much more scope and possibility for fleshing out those fundamental ideas.
Yeah, I love that too, especially thinking of Christ and the parables. Like Christ teaches through narrative and he teaches through stories, and yeah, we're embodied creatures, and we need to hear these truths in an embodied way. So yeah, no, I love that.
It's existential. It's a 2 thumbs up for me, so.
And literature and literary and poetic. Yeah, great question, whoever sent that in.
Yeah.
Well done.
I don't know either, but okay, so I guess I have to be the audience. I have a question. Okay. A little more over on the theology side this time. What are some of the best ways to share the faith with people who deny that truth even exists?
It's a great question. And I think probably the jumping off point from the previous question would be the question of the perspective, rather, of narrative. I think you can start by saying truth fundamentally is not an abstraction. It's a living reality. It takes place in context. And probably for me, the most convincing, perhaps, argument for truth, argument for some kind of meaning, is not to be found in a first principle or a proposition or an argument. Of course, we're going to get to those eventually in this search towards truth. But thinking for somebody who is mired in sort of the meaninglessness of a contemporary culture, perhaps secularism, they're not sure what the meaning of anything is, let alone a more principled idea of truth. So I'd like to draw attention to an image that I think is quite profound at multiple levels, the notion of this relational exchange between a mother's smile and her infant. And somehow that's a vision of being, not being just neutrally as such, but being that's fundamentally mediated in the context of a smile, in the context of love. So the child awakens to consciousness under the gaze of this smile. And this is truth. This is goodness. This is beauty. And we're talking about something transcendental here in regards to the transcendental. Truth is good. Truth is beautiful. And so on and so forth. And so that context, that living context, the relationships of love, this precisely, I think, is how you can help to mediate an encounter with truth, begin a journey that might otherwise not begin for somebody who the notion of truth as an abstraction is fundamentally problematic.
Yeah, no, that's so good to think about it in that relational way, in that human way. I love Pope Benedict. I know Bishop Barron picks up on this, other philosophers, theologians, of the way of beauty, which I probably will mispronounce this Latin, but the via pulchritud. Do you want to help me out there? Via pulchritudinus. I think I might have gotten it. But yeah, that way of beauty, of where you are drawn to the transcendentals, the truth and the good through this very human, very living, embodied experience of a mother's smile and the baby's response, or yeah, a piece of music or painting or book, whatever it might be. So you experience, and then that experience causes the wonder. And the wonder causes the questions, and the questions hopefully will lead you in the right direction. But it's, you got to start with where we are as human beings, and yeah, you can't just jump straight into logic. So yeah, that's so great to
I
start
think we
with
can jump
humans.
less and less into logic nowadays. I don't know. It
Yes.
seems like
Yeah.
no one has logic anymore. Anyhow,
Yeah.
that, you think we've covered that one? Studio audience? Okay, all right. I have a question. Okay, if you could, this is going to be one that you got to quickly think about, because
Okay.
it's more of like an opinion question, it looks like.
Great.
If you could ask any author a
Ooh.
question about their work, so this doesn't have to be literature, okay?
Yes,
You
true,
could ask
true.
any author a question about their work. Who would you ask, and what would that question be?
Wow, great question.
I'll jump in.
Yes, please do. Go for it, Connor.
First thing that came to mind was J.R.R. Tolkien.
Well done.
I sort of wrote a book picking up some of his themes. And I might actually ask him I don't know, this is sort of a left field point perhaps, but to what extent did your experiences of the war shape the themes that we see in The Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
This interplay of dark and light and good and evil, and the profound sort of truths that emerge within this quest that these three, eventually it's two hobbits who have set out to do this impossible task.
Yeah.
So I would be interested in something like that for Tolkien.
I love that. Yeah. I think I would ask, maybe not in particular about the actual story, but I'm always interested in too, and how have others responded to their work in particular? So, I mean, we all know that audiences, they'll write to their favorite authors or, movie stars or musicians, whoever it might be. And so could they share, I would ask them, has anybody reached out and shared how their work has changed their life for the better? Which I'm sure, I mean, all of us who read Tolkien or Lewis or, any Shakespeare, pick whatever you will. How has that shaped your life in a very particular way? I remember reading somewhere, somebody said that the poetry of John Keats saved his life. I'm like, wow, that's a bold claim. And then I'm just like, why Keats? What was going on? What was it about the Keats poem? But I think that would be really fascinating to talk with an author or on whatever work that they might have done. And I would ask them, what gifts has your work given to others, and have you been able to hear how your work has affected others' lives?
Got another one.
Yeah, go for it. No, yeah.
I would ask Nietzsche.
Okay.
I would ask that question of
Good.
Nietzsche. Might be a little dark.
I might be a little dark, but just like, and how do you feel about what your work has done to people? But yeah, no, I love reading authors' letters. And if you guys have read any of C.S. Lewis letters that he's written, responded to, corresponded with, especially from children, there's a book like Letters from Children, and C.S. Lewis, and he's so matter of fact, and he's so just straightforward with them, and he's inspiring and uplifting. And I love the fact that even little kids approaching this world of Narnia are moved enough to want to form this relationship with the author. And yeah, and I mean, it stays with you. Those stories stay with you.
Walter, do you have one?
Yeah. Do you want
come
to
on, you
ask
gotta
an
ask.
author?
I'm the audience. The audience only
This is
asks. They don't have
Your
to
teacher
answer.
move on your part. The professor move.
I if I knew I was going to be put on the spot, I probably would have thought of something. But I've
That's
got
okay. You can think later.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll think later. I'll talk now and think later.
Yeah.
How about- Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. No, I'll hold off on that one, but I do want to get to that one. Is telling a story the same thing as lying?
Oh, wow. Well, intentionality.
If it is, there goes your whole profession, right?
I'm just, that's
Stories?
it. I'm out of a job. Oh,
This is serious
This is
business.
it. How am I going to answer? Yeah, no, isn't that funny though, telling stories? We talked about this when I taught Huckleberry Finn, just because of, I mean, it's such a delight and a half to read all of Huck's imaginative stories, which are flat out lies, but there's always truth to them. And then we always have a great discussion in class of, well, what's the ethical dilemma here? He's telling this lie, he's telling this story, he's making up this narrative for greater good, to save Jim, to escape his paw or whatever else it might be. So yeah, the intention behind the lie or the storytelling definitely matters there. Yeah, no, feel free to jump in.
Well, it's an interesting story, or it's an interesting question, because it seems to me the implication there is that any form of intentionally deceiving someone, perhaps, is that morally problematic? If I were to put on my theologian's hat.
Yes.
It's a question of lying, and are there places where deception is morally licit? I play poker. The whole game of poker is deceiving the opposition. So obviously we're making a distinction here between storytelling and games versus reality.
Mm-hmm.
And some games are premised on telling, deceptive maneuvers, if you will.
Yeah.
So certainly in that sense, I think you have to distinguish between lying in real life and lying in these various different genres and forms.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm just going back to the original question of, is telling a story the same thing as telling a lie? No.
Yeah, let's be clear.
Let's just be clear, because of all the times my little nephews and niece are like, tell us a story, Aunt Kathleen. I'm like, well, there was this one time this badger decided to go on a treasure hunt. And, you enter into a story world that, of course, is not real, but it is real in the moment. And it gets the kids to pay attention. And all of a sudden, they're focused. It's just the magic of the words, once upon a time.
Okay, what
It
about
just, yeah.
what about Santa Claus?
Well,
yeah, I was
Easter
going to
Bunny
ask
and
my
all of that.
own actual
I know,
question. I
Tooth
was so proud of
Fairy.
it, and
Yeah.
you took it all away. Anyway,
But of course,
One
you
step
talk
ahead.
about myth, and we're talking, well, this is not literal truth,
Yes.
but the story is carrying, hopefully,
Yes.
the bigger archetypal themes of existence. And so
Well, I
telling
think-
a story in that sense, there's multiple layers within it.
Right.
And
well,
Right.
yeah, and I guess that I would approach the true aspects. I would talk about Saint Nicholas.
Mhm.
Okay. And then I would also say, well, I mean, if you talk to Father Pisano, he has that picture of Santa Claus kneeling
Yes,
at
the baby
yeah,
Jesus
yeah.
manger. Yeah,
And that's
beautiful.
kind of neat,
Yeah.
But to talk about Santa Claus to your kids as if it was, oh, okay, go to bed, kids, and Santa's coming down the chimney and we're leaving the cookies and all of that kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't have kids. So, but it probably is kind of going a little bit over the line, even though no harm is
Yeah.
being meant to done. But to emphasize maybe the true stories of St. Nicholas and things like that.
Sure,
and
sure.
then also say, well, there is Santa Claus and he's a fun kind of thing. And
Yeah.
we'll have fun with Santa Claus, but he's not actually real. You don't even have to say he's not real. You just
Yeah,
don't-
no, that makes sense, and then also too, just like Connor was saying, leading them to a deeper reality. There's this Emily Dickinson poem that I love where it starts off saying, tell all the truth, but tell it slant, as lightning to children's minds is ease. I'm getting the poem wrong, but look it up. She's got this poem, tell all the truth, but tell it slant. As lightning to the child's mind is ease.
Yeah, that's great.
Anyway, yeah. So it's when I was a child, I thought as a child, and I had the milk of a child, but when I was a man, I was given solid food, and so you have that gradation and your capacity to get deeper and deeper into the actual truth. Yeah.
Well, I think me blowing the lid on the Santa thing, we lost 12 givers here. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. All right. I was handed another question here. And this is going along with the topic. Have you both seen the film Life is Beautiful?
Yes. Long time ago.
Oh, I think that's one I actually missed.
Okay. It's an Italian film. It's in Italian.
I know of
Yes.
it, yes.
Yes. World War II.
Okay.
Right?
Well, then
Yeah.
was the father in Life is Beautiful lying
Yeah.
or storytelling, or
Right.
what is does he have a justification there?
Yeah. Do you remember the premise?
Sorry, I'm gonna have to bow out
No,
on this
you're
one.
good. Yeah,
No,
no,
it's
it's
in
been a
it.
while, but I remember talking about that. It's a difficult question. It's a great question because you really are thinking, what is best for my child? What truth does my child need to know? What truth can my child handle? And really, how is this going to shape my child's perception of the world and the world in which we're living, which is such a destructive world. So the dad in the concentration camp, everything that happens, he portrays it as part of this delightful story and
Almost a game. right?
almost a
Yeah, right.
game, and there's
Right.
cheer and even like the final march, it's like a dance as he's leaving the screen. And the kid is smiling and waving, and your heart is breaking because you're like, oh my gosh, what's this child gonna do when he wakes up to the reality? But I would hope in that sense, I mean, the movie made abundantly clear how much the father loved his boy.
Mhm, mhm.
So much love there. And I really don't think that type of love and that intensity and sacrificial love is going to make the child grow up bitter and jaded, because he'll eventually realize the truth. I think really what's going to remain is the fact that his father did sacrifice and love and create this world in which this child could live still as a child and not grow up too quickly.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, there's certainly times where we have to sort of draw the veil, shield our
Yeah.
children from things to protect their innocence. And certainly it's not about saying, look, son, we're going to sit down, I'm going to tell you every horrible thing there is in this world. I mean, that's not how it works. So there is this prudence that's necessary. Sometimes the truth needs to be guarded.
Yeah.
So probably something like that's going on in the film, but of course, not having seen it.
To me, it's one of these tough questions, like,
It's a great question.
if the Gestapo comes to your door and they ask you if you're hiding a Jew and you are, or whatever, is it lying to say no? I mean, come on, I mean, of course you're going to say no. I mean, well, I mean, technically it's an untruth. It's a lie technically, but
Yeah.
I mean, you really don't have a whole lot of time. I don't think that person's going to be very culpable, because it's just, hey, I'm saving a life here, and this
Intention.
is, and I think he's in this film, he's protecting his son by doing this, and it's, once again, he's in the situation too. I mean,
Oh, sure, yeah.
He's putting on a show, but I'm sure is in reality stressed out, and so this is the thing that comes to mind,
Yeah.
that he can do to protect his son for as long as possible. So I think technically, yeah, he's lying, if he actually does, if he's talking about games and things like that, but I'm pretty sure oh, that man is doing this. And
Yeah,
so
right,
there's
yeah.
definitely lying going on
Presenting a different-
technically,
Right.
but
Yeah.
the so if somebody's going to really be technical about it, well then, yeah. But I think in reality, I can't see how God would be like, oh, I'm going to get you for that, So anyhow, but why am I
question, yeah.
why am I part of the panel? I'm supposed
You're
to
just
just be
too
asking the
excited about
questions.
Quodlibet.
Yeah, well,
yes.
no, we just went into films, so you can't shut me up. But all right,
Sure.
let's.
It's James Cagney, a good guy.
Yeah. Okay, so now I'm gonna go with. It seems like a lot of these are more literature oriented.
Beautiful.
Feel free to jump on
Okay,
in.
here's one which will kind of wed both. Do you have to be a morally good person to write good literature?
What's with all the moral and ethical questions?
Yeah.
Boy.
Where are we? No, thank goodness. For all of us writers or aspiring writers or just artists producing people. Anyway, no, immediately comes to mind is Oscar Wilde's. He really, I think, almost in the midst of his hedonistic lifestyle, he produced just amazing literature and stories and short stories and fairy tales, and his book. I mean, he had his ultimate conversion after the downfall and stay in prison. But yeah, no, thank goodness God works through our imperfect selves. But if we are open and we respect the truth and we hold the mirror up to reality and want to convey the truth, then thankfully through our weakness and through our failings, it will still shine forth true. But yeah, I wouldn't say that there's a definitive standard that morally imperfect artists produce less beautiful works. I don't. Yeah, feel free.
Yeah, and it seems like often geniuses are sort of those who are kind of on the edge of reason, perhaps insanity.
Yeah.
Certainly experience of life and all of its wonders, all of its sufferings, all of its evils. I mean, there can be profound insight that comes just from having experienced those things. Now, we might say ultimately a moral person, a good person, perhaps won't be able to see through the chaos, see through the phenomena, and perhaps a resolution sort of in the perspective of the suffering servant Christ. Perhaps that will evade the artistic person who can otherwise, in some sense, shed light on profoundly real, profoundly meaningful and existential themes.
Yeah.
So ultimately, hopefully, faith is what shapes a total vision, is somehow able to integrate and make ultimate sense of some of these profound human experiences.
Yeah, that's another really great question. Thanks, guys, for sending these in.
Yeah, I don't know where they came from. They just magically appeared before we started.
The life of the mind.
Okay. Yeah, and once again, I have a little more, in my opinion, film experience watching films, but I tell you, I have seen some beautiful films.
Mhm.
And you're watching an interview
Yeah.
with the director later on, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I was raised a Catholic, and then I left the church." And I'm like, how could this guy have
Yeah.
produced this beauty? It's really interesting because I got clear.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I might have. I got a clear Catholic or moral or whatever message
Isn't
from.
that, yeah,
Often
that's
that
so good.
runs very deep.
Yeah.
At a very formative level, you might say.
And
So,
and I guess the sub question, I don't know if Quodlibets allow sub
Yes, they
questions.
do.
But
Follow-up
they do?
sub
Okay, all right.
questions, yeah.
When you were talking about Oscar Wilde and that he had ultimately had a
Mhm.
conversion at the end,
Yeah.
can I mean, certainly the beauty that he wrote
Mhm.
in the literature was that the good in him sort of
Probably,
working on-
sure. Yeah,
and
yeah. There's always
could his ultimate conversion even have had something to do with his recounting of his works over
sure,
the years,
sure.
and
yeah.
and maybe even him seeing them in a new light
In a
all of
new
a
way.
sudden, or
Yeah,
something
no,
like
thank
that.
goodness. Yeah, any epiphany moment you have, any moment of that self-awareness, that you are meant for, that you're in this world, in this very material world, and we acknowledge that it's necessary and good that we are material beings, but any of that tug on your heart or reminder and self-awareness that we also have this call to the divine world, like at whatever stage in your life that you are, if you're listening to that call, I mean, good's got to come out of that. Yeah, especially, yeah. I was even starting thinking of movies. I was thinking of, I believe it was the director. I'm sure you guys know this, the director of A Man for All Seasons, or the
Okay.
writer of the play.
Mhm.
He was not Catholic, but he was so intrigued by Thomas More's integrity. And I can't remember the actual era in which he wrote the play, but it was at a time where moral integrity was off the walls, and so he was just struck by this man who had so much integrity in the face of such secular and friendship pressure, that he stood his ground, sacrificed his life, and so even as a non-practicing man of faith, he still saw that strength and courage and beauty in the man of faith. But yeah.
And does a great job at
Oh
portraying it.
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, fantastic play and movie.
Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm not going to read this in advance, so hopefully I can understand every word here. All right. Are we truly able to enter into Christ's suffering? Can we even begin to understand the depth of his encounter with oh, okay. The depth of his encounter with evil and the suffering of all humanity in the Garden of Gethsemane. Do you want me to read that over again, or because I was
that's a great
stuttering
That's
all?
good.
Okay, you got
No,
it.
you're
Okay.
good.
yeah, well, I'm guessing a theologian, right?
Yeah.
Right, do it.
No, it's a fantastic question, because obviously we're dealing with plumbing the depths of evil. Of course, evil is a consequence of our sin, fall of Adam and Eve, and entry of evil into the world. So obviously we know evil to some extent, unfortunately. But the power and significance of Christ experiencing evil, experiencing suffering, experienced all the horrible things that we are capable of, is the fact that he's not just human, but he's God. And God is, in his fundamental being, the antithesis of what evil is. And so for God to enter into that suffering, God who has Christ in his divine nature, having this awareness of what evil actually is. And at that level, yes, we know evil, but boy, does the Son know evil far more than we know it. And does he feel it far more than we feel it? So in looking at it from that point of view, what the Son took on in his human nature is profound mystery. And of course, it shows the extent to which God will follow his children, like the Good Shepherd, go to the ends of the earth, go to the depths of hell, literally, in order to call them back. So of course, this is one of the most profound mysteries of Christian faith, what makes it so entirely, utterly unique.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Thanks, Connor. That was spoken very well and true. And it's very sobering as well. Just recognizing even those moments of darkness or the feeling of abandonment, which of course we all experience, the dark days or longer than dark days, the physical suffering, mental, emotional, whatever it might be, those are just glimpses. And even the saints who go through the dark night of the body, the dark night of the soul, those are just parts, parts of the ultimate suffering that Christ undertook for us. But yeah, no, it's just that ever longing to be united with somebody. I remember a quote by Fulton Sheen where he said, if you look at the shape of a human heart, the physical shape of a human heart, there's a piece missing. Like it's not there's something missing. He says that he believes that piece is with God. And so there's constantly any forever this longing of ourselves to be reunited in fullness with God. And so to whatever extent that we experience that separation and that longing and that abandonment, like, oh God, why have thou abandoned me? We're just getting a taste of that suffering. But yeah.
Oh, that got pretty heavy.
I just Fulton Sheen, though, he's great.
He is.
Yes.
Okay, there are plenty more. Single greatest Catholic author from the 20th century. Go. That's what it
We
says.
already talked about Tolkien. That's
I'll
good.
go
Well,
with that probably again.
Yeah.
Personal
No.
favorite. Personal
Yeah,
favorite.
no, another fantastic question. I mean, I can only think of like Tolkien and Chesterton and, oh gosh, Graham Greene and Hilaire Belloc.
But
and some
that's
other-
the
just
10 greatest.
those- yeah,
single
I
greatest.
know,
Yeah.
single. I know it's hard to decide, but yeah, I guess I'll say Chesterton. Although I haven't delved as much as I want into him. I was super ambitious one summer. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna read Orthodoxy and I'm gonna read The Everlasting Man. I'm gonna like have a Chestertonian summer, and I was like had a whole big stack, and I'd read his Father Brown, so I was like, okay, this is gonna be great. It's gonna be fun. We'll fly through all these stories and books. No, get through one paragraph of, I think it was in The Everlasting Man, and I was just blown away by one sentence, and I'm like, wow, I need to ponder this and think about this more and more. So I did not speed through Chesterton, as I don't think you can or should. So I'll go with Chesterton. And plus, I just today read a hilarious poem that he wrote parodying other poets that I like, and I was just like, well done, Chesterton, because he has a lot of joy and laughter about his works as well. Yeah, so we'll go with good old Gilbert Keith.
Now, Walter, is that a literary?
Oh my
Author?
goodness. He
Catholic author.
Okay, well, the
Catholic
door
author,
is
I was
wide
gonna
open.
say,
then.
The door
yeah.
is wide
Yeah, no,
open.
go for it. Yeah.
I probably was going to say Tolkien if it was sort of.
Yeah,
literary
no,
genre,
yes.
Well, I looked at some of the formative theological influences of my formation, and there's a lot of them sort of in the 20th century. And why don't we just stick with the 20th century,
Yeah.
because I sort of cut my teeth, for example, on the thought of JP2
Mm-hmm.
for starters. Obviously, Ratzinger, brilliant theologian in his own right.
Yeah.
Of course, the 20th century was blessed with many fantastic, very learned, very accomplished theological authors. I could mention von Balthasar, de Lubac, Bronner. Probably maybe I should mention Bronner's name, but he was accomplished. Probably criticize him a little bit.
I don't know him. I'm sorry.
But certainly the 20th century was remarkable in terms of its theological output at a time, a very tumultuous time in human history. And I think there's still so much there that we're just starting to plumb the depths of and integrate into the life of the church. This notion of resource renewal is very much still ongoing. So I think the future is bright, ultimately, even if there are going to be some tumultuous moments along the way. So those kinds of authors, one way or another, I think have shaped my own way of thinking on various
Got to
things.
pick one.
Oh, one.
Yeah.
Well,
You're on a desert
This will
island.
be
You
a
only
bit-
have one word.
First,
Or
but you don't
you only have
okay,
words
the
by one word.
conservative Dr. Sweeney would say probably Ratzinger,
Okay.
and the somewhat more risque Dr. Sweeney might say somebody like von Balthasar.
Okay.
But there's
Okay.
Very
context
cool.
there.
Very cool.
Okay, well, I won't
Yes.
make you go down any further, because that was two, not
That's-
one. But anyway.
I mean, I
Well, pick-
rattled off a whole
take your
list
pick.
too, but yes.
Let's see. Okay, all right.
Flannery O'Connor. Yeah, they'll shout her out there
yeah,
too at
that's
the
good.
end. Yeah.
Okay, that is good. And okay. there's some more questions here. Nothing's coming from the
Excellent.
studio audience. No? Okay. All righty. Aside from scripture, what works of oh, this is related. No, you know what? This is the same question, so forget it.
No,
The-
you can ask it. I'm sure it'll-
works that have had the most profound oh, well, I'm sorry, this isn't personal now. Okay. Aside from scripture, what works of literature or authors, so it's also can be not literature, I suppose, have had the most profound impact on the way Catholics see the world? Ooh.
Mr. William Shakespeare.
Hmm.
Yes, no, yeah, absolutely. I like that question because there's always distinctions, it's not ever the same. But yeah, so works, authors that have shaped the world. And did it say Catholic? What was the?
It said impact on the way Catholics see the world,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it does not specifically
Specify
state that they
Catholic
must be
author.
Catholic.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, I would go with Shakespeare. I would go with the myths. If you have an understanding of a world and your imagination has been formed by mythologies, by Shakespeare, also of course your faith, the Bible. I mean, you'll see the world in that imaginative way, and yeah, Shakespeare's capturing of human conflicts, human nature, and just the very formative understanding that there is virtue, it is attainable. Yeah, I mean, universally appealing and universally adapted. Well, we'll go with Shakespeare and mythologies.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly a genius who deeply understood human nature,
Yeah.
Shakespeare. You want something more theological, Walter? Or
That sounds fine. Yes.
actually, I would love to talk about René Girard.
Oh, do
Opinion,
it. No, yeah,
um,
no, I took a class on him and no.
Oh,
go
he's
for it.
brilliant. He's brilliant.
Okay,
Oh, I
great.
don't know what I could say by way of a general introduction. He's into basically looking at themes in mythology, which really for him are sort of some of the earliest wrestlings, representations of what it means to be human, primarily dealing with the problem of violence. And so he says the fundamental perennial problem in human societies is how to deal with violence. And for him, looking at it at a deep sort of anthropological foundation, he looks at the way religion, religious sacrifice emerges as a product of this attempt to deal with violence. So he calls it the single victim mechanism, whereby a scapegoat in a way is burdened with the guilt and the sin, the chaos, the disorder of the community. And ultimately they sort of see, well, when we gather and we kill this innocent victim, well, peace is restored. There's kind of a catharsis that emerges out of this phenomenon. And so Girard thinks that religion as such emerges out of this cycle. And of course, what they don't actually understand is that it's actually the mob that gathers to kill the innocent victim that are the ones that are actually guilty. So violence, evil resides in our own human heart. And so what Girard does, and what's very interesting, is he looks at the Christian story, Christ, and he says, look, this takes place within the fabric of the same archetypal reality that is being expressed in the myths. Only here the story is different. Here the innocent victim is revealed as innocent, and the guilt is turned on the mob, and all of a sudden this archetypal story that we see replayed time and time again in human cultures is turned on its head, and our true redemption, the Lamb of God who takes away the sins of the world, is revealed as an entirely, utterly unique phenomenon in the history of mankind. So Girard starts out as a non-Catholic and non-believer, and by looking at cultures and mythology leading up to the Christ story, he says this is truly divine, something analogous to truly this man was the Son of God. And here we have an event which has reshaped human history. Of course, someone like a Nietzsche understood this and he hated it. But Girard thinks Nietzsche understands that there is something fundamentally unique and profound going on in the mystery of Christ.
And what's his full name?
René Girard.
Okay.
Did he
French.
convert?
He did convert, yeah. Recently
Wow.
deceased. I think he died in 2015. But I think
Wow.
the scope of that thesis,
Yes.
and there's a lot of other things he says which are remarkably profound, but in many ways there's a whole Girardian
Criticism for literature
emerging
as well.
and all kinds of things. That's right.
Yeah.
So it's
Oops, sorry.
very
you, Walter.
interesting. And I
Thank
think there'll be much more
Thanks.
impact further down the
Is
road.
it Girard?
That's right.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, no, great.
In
Thank
case you want to
Connor.
Google him. Okay. All righty. I'm getting all kinds of hand signals that I half understand. Is that 10? Oh, okay, okay. That's 10 divided by 2 then. All right. So I think that, so 5 means one more question. One more question? Okay. Unless you answer it really fast. Okay. All right. We'll end with since you had mentioned no, sorry. Well, now I got to cut it down. So all right. So here's a question then. Books. What books would you recommend sharing with people who haven't been exposed to good, this says literature, but I'm going to make it a little larger and say good writing. And
Yeah.
is there a good place to start?
Great. Yes, Jane Austen. I just wanted to mention her at least once, but no, I will stick with that just because she's fantastic. Yeah, no, somebody who hasn't been exposed to good literature of the great books, I guess, quality. So Jane Austen, I think, is universally applicable in the sense that she too is getting right into the heart of our human conflicts, and she just zeroes into those struggles that we have. And it's not necessarily between drastic failure and then success, but it's just something that, you know, even between two goods, we still have to make a decision. We still have to offer sacrifices. And she makes virtue attainable and attractive. And I think that that's what's really fantastic about her. So for somebody who isn't, I suppose, wanting to immediately jump into Dostoevsky, although they should, then maybe go for Miss Jane and have a couple of laughs while also being exposed to very, very obvious Aristotelian insights, and then hopefully too you'll be attracted to other great artists. Yeah.
Can I say Lord of the Rings? Is
Yes.
that
Sure.
Yes, please do. 3 times.
I read it to
and
my
then-
kids,
no,
and
that's
they were
great.
pretty young when I read it to them. It's amazing how they took to that. I mean, obviously, you know, it's a pretty complex story. There's a lot packed into a book that's this thick, but it's remarkable how they captured their imagination,
Yeah.
and even at a young age, they were able to really see its and experience its power. And for me, it's, you know, I don't read much by way of literature these days, unfortunately. Just do too much reading of a theological nature. By the time I
Totally
come home,
good.
I'm
Yes.
too tired. But Lord of the Rings, certainly you can return to that time and time
Mhm.
again, and it's just a fantastic read.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you
Um,
all.
so should I? Okay, so I'm told by the studio audience that we have 2 minutes, so we can just
Well,
maybe
do you wanna-
wind it up.
Sure.
We can wind
Great.
it up and
Yes.
just maybe this semester, what are the courses that you're teaching?
Great. Yes.
Okay.
Great question. Thanks, Walter. Yes, I am teaching a poetry and poetics course, which goes a survey from medieval ballads all the way up to 20th century works of modern poetry. And I'm also teaching the 4th and last part of the English core, English 202, which is modern, ends in modern literature. So we are currently reading Flannery O'Connor right now, which again, she is brilliant and amazing, and also serves as an examination of conscience sometimes too. So she's fierce.
I'm doing, let's see, theology, intro to theology with my freshmen. And then for my juniors, I'm doing evangelization and apologetics. And my juniors are getting a few doses of Girard, getting a bit of Nietzsche, doing some cultural theory, trying to figure out a secular age, the backdrop against which evangelization apologetics takes place. So it's been fun.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So
Great.
if you're
Thanks,
senior in
everyone.
high school and you're watching, they teach freshmen, so sign up. Anyway, okay. Well, so thank you guys.
Thanks,
And
Walter.
it was
Thank you.
good
Thank you, Connor.
to sit and chat with you. And I didn't feel like as big of an idiot as I thought I was going to. So that's nice. Anyway, so thank you. Thank
Great.
you. And
Yeah. Thank you all.
I think that yep. I think yeah. We now, according to the script, move on to the next adventure, which is actually Mike Brown. I'm not going to have to do the trivia. It's actually going to go
Wonderful.
on Zoom. So I think I've got a few words from our sponsor first.